Can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. It's me, Niall. Delighted as always to be joined by Owen, and we're here in final prediction mode for this Saturday night's huge main event from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London as Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn go at it again, following on from their tremendous fight of the year candidate from a few months ago. Absolutely outstanding fight. That's all Eubank Jr. prevail on points. But yeah, they're running it back on in this one. I cannot wait for the main event. I really can't. It's gonna, well, if it's kind of round 13, as they say, which hopefully it is, they pick up where they left off in that last one. But yeah, let's not beat around the bush. Let's no messing about. What is your final prediction for the big one? Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn this Saturday.
It will be a repeat for me. I think Eubank Jr. is going to win again, but I would back Eubank Jr. via stoppage this time. Um, I think the way the first fight went, I've been watching some of the interviews and the build up, and I think Conor Benn's obsessed with beating Chris Eubank Jr. now. I think that can be a good thing. I think it can be a bad thing, and I think with the animosity, the level of hatred, the history now between the two, etc. I think that's going to be his undoing. Some people said that, I've seen a lot of people commenting saying Eubank was hurt, but I think he might have got buzzed in the mid rounds, but I don't think anything serious. However, Conor Benn denies it, but Conor Benn was hurt towards the end of that fight. He was running on empty at one stage and, had to, he might deny it, but it was plain to see he was biting down on his gum shield and surviving. I think it was round nine, possibly round 10. So yeah, for me, I think Eubank will use. Well, I think and I hope he'll have a better cut this time. I think he'll go in stronger, fitter, healthier, and the way the first fight went, I think that just means for a late sort of round nine, round 10, Chris Eubank Jr. stoppage.
But there you go. Very interesting. And I know I remember we were on videos before the first fight and we both went convincing Chris Eubank wins. I'm going, I'm going for a Conor Benn win here. And that's going to shock you. Um, I just, I cannot get the weight cut and
Mm.
the kind of dehydration of Eubank out of my head. It was drastic, and it showed
Mhm.
in that first fight how drained he was and how beat up he was. Although, as you say, not properly kind of hurt, in terms of getting buzzed, but just the fact that the weight cut took so much out of him, and it's back again at the same weight, which I didn't want to see. I called it after the first fight. I didn't
Mhm.
want to see the same weight. He ended up hospitalized after that. And I just think it's gonna prove to be the difference here. I think Conor Benn will get it done on points. I think he'll get a close points win. Just purely because I think he'll be the fresher man, with Eubank draining himself, boiling himself down to 160, especially at his age too. It's not like he's kind of a young man anymore that's struggling to make 160. He's made 160 a lot of times, and he's near the end of his career. So yeah, I just hope there's nothing too drastic in terms of health effects, but I think he'll be too drained, and I think Conor Benn will get it done in this one. So it makes for an interesting video that we're split on opinions, and I know a lot of people are splitting opinions on this one, but yeah, you're going for Eubank Jr. I'm going for Conor Benn. Just a quick one. Since I was going to ask about Conor Benn, but since you're going with Chris Eubank, just before we wrap up, do you think Chris Eubank Jr. will ever get his hands on a world title? As I say, he's not a young man anymore. Um, he's had attempts in the past. He has had an IBL world title, which we're not counting. But yeah, do you think before he kind of calls it a day, he has a world title left in him?
Um, It, yes and no. I don't necessarily think it's the weight that's killing Eubank. Like you say, he has made 160 a lot of times. I think it's the rehydration clause. I think that's what killed him. And if that's still in place, then it is definitely going to be a factor again. but he's made it a lot of times. And if he wanted to stay at 160 after, could Chris Eubank Jr. beat Erislandy Lara? Absolutely. If Janibek manages to sweep up the titles, then no, absolutely not. Could he beat Carlos Adames? I don't think it's out of the equation. I don't think it'd be a massive shock. So I think he could definitely win a world title. It just has to be the right opponent, the right weight. Does he fight at 168 or does he make 160 again? Does he think Erislandy Lara is a way to, you know, probably depending on where it is, would he be the A side? Highly likely, even though Lara's a world champion, especially if it was over here, Eubank can 100% be the A side. And he becomes a WBA world champion at 160. So if I think it has to be cherry picked, I'm not sat here saying, yeah, 100% throw him in with any of the world champions he can beat on. If it was to be at 160, there are some cherry-picked fights that he could see him lift a world title. But as I said, if it's someone like Janibek, then just forget it. Absolutely not a chance. Janibek would, at this stage of Eubank's career, I think Janibek would stop him.
Yeah, totally agree. Just quickly before I give my opinion, I think what you said about the rehydration clause, yeah, it was that is true. That rehydration clause. I don't know how it's still allowed in boxing, to be quite
Mhm.
honest with you. I don't know how it's still legal, but that's for another discussion. But yeah, I think there is chances of him getting his hands on a world title. But as you say, I think it has to be cherry picked or a vacant title. He definitely is capable of picking one up at 160. But Janabek, I know Janabek is fighting Lara soon. I think Janabek wins that. And I think, it would be a bad night's work for Chris Eubank Jr. against Janabek. But there's no shame in that, I suppose. I think Janabek could do that to a lot of people. But yeah, in my opinion, if I had to say, will he get his hands on one? I think it might have just passed him by. But he's had a good career. He's made plenty of money, but there's still another one to go. That was myself and Owen giving our final predictions for Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, the huge rematch this Saturday night from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. Same venue as the first fight. Let's hope it's the same fight. The same kind of entertainment level. Myself and Owen are split, so yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. Who do you have winning the rematch? Is it repeat or revenge? And as always, don't forget, drop a like on the video first of all. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not doing so already, and follow us on all social media. Owen, it was a pleasure. Take care.
Cheers, mate.